Hello, everybody. My name is Chris. I'm a behavior analyst, and today I wanted to show a video of how you can graph data from CentralReach using Microsoft Excel or really any spreadsheet or any graphing software. Now, the question is, why would you want to do this considering that CentralReach has its own graphs? Well, to be polite, I'm just not a fan of CentralReach graphs. More specifically, there will be times, or there may be times, where CentralReach does not give you the graphical display that you need for the data. Number one, let's say that for some reason you want to do a bar chart or a bar graph. Now, you can do bar graphs in CentralReach, especially if you're doing some sort of functional analysis or functional assessment. CentralReach does have an assessments module, but maybe you don't have access to that. Or maybe there is something very specific that you're needing to do. Another reason why you might want to use Excel versus CentralReach is, let's say that you want to publish and you need the graph to be APA formatted. CentralReach does not do that. Another reason why is, let's say that you need to combine multiple data sets. Now, CentralReach does have a combined graph, and this is an example of the combined graph right here. This is not PHI. By the way, this is directly from CentralReach's website. This is the URL right here. And I pulled this image just to show you an example of what I'm talking about here. CentralReach will do combined graphs, and it will actually separate the different lessons that you're looking at. But one of the things CentralReach is not great at is combining multiple types of data or multiple similar types of data into something like a total per day or an average per day. Again, if you've got one single learning tree, you can have the total per day, the total average per day. But let's say that you're taking frequency of multiple different types of aggression, like pinching, scratching, biting, and let's say you want that all into one graph. You can make a combined graph, but it will only give you the option for an average per day. It won't give you the option of a total per day. So that is one situation where you're going to need to pull something out of CR and open it up in Excel. And there's actually quite a few times where I have needed to pull data from CR and just graph it in Excel. And it's actually very, very easy and straightforward. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to download the data as a CSV. Now, you can download an entire learning tree, and CentralReach has an article on how to do that. But let's say that you just want uh, one branch in a learning tree, or one lesson, or maybe three or four. You don't need everything. Well, the easiest way to do that is to go to the data, take a look at the graph, and then on the graph, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to select this hamburger symbol right here. They call this a hamburger. You're going to want to select that. And when you do select that, it will show you a few different options. Now, you can download the graph as a JPEG, as a PDF, as a GIF. And then way at the bottom of that list, you can download the data as a CSV. CSV stands for comma separated value file. And if you could open that up in TextEdit or Word, and you would just see a bunch of numbers and letters separated by a comma. But when you open that up in Excel or any other spreadsheet software, you will get something like this. Now, again, this is made up data. I'll explain what each of these columns, data value, this is a unique ID. And again, these are all identical because I'm just making this data up, but this is a unique ID. That can sometimes be helpful if you want to find a specific, I don't know, time that something was graphed or something. The user, this is the name of the user who graphed the data. And so this would be your staff, your behavior analyst, your technician, the person who graphed the data. And this can be really helpful. You can filter this through, oh, I just want to see Susan's data, or I just want to check Carl's data or whoever, or you could even graph this. CentralReach actually does have the option to graph data by user, but maybe you need to do this in a different way. And then the user ID, and then the data type, which would be either intervention, generalization, maintenance, or baseline, and then the data. The data and the data date is what you need. The trial either is the summary or trial 1, trial 2, trial 3. This is actually each specific trial of the data that you're running. Now, if you're going to download frequency or duration data, you won't have trial. You'll just have summary. But when you download a percent correct, a task analysis, percent independence, anything like that, you will get both summary data and trial data. Most of the time, you're just going to want this trial by trial data. Do not use the summary data to make your graphs, and I'll explain this. I'll explain this right now. What the summary is. This is not the summary per day. This is not the summary per hour or anything like this. This is the summary of the data based on the time that it was graphed. So in this made-up data, I have November 2nd at 1:20 and then November 2nd at 2:20, so separated an hour apart. Now, this is another reason why you may need to download data from CentralReach. The way CentralReach calculates the percent correct, or the average daily, average weekly, it doesn't take the average from the raw data. It takes the average from the summary data. So CentralReach will summarize the data when you graph it. So here in this made-up data, the client got 55% correct at 1:20 and then 25% correct at 2:20. And the average of those two is going to be 40%. And Excel just does this really quickly for you. You just select all the data you want to average, and it'll just give you this nice summary right down here. And you're thinking, oh, okay, that's great. That's really, really helpful. But, and I made this very specifically like that, if we select all of the data for November 2nd, the actual average is 61.5%. So, again, depending on how you're looking at the data, this may not be important, but if you're looking at average daily, CentralReach is not really giving you the, at least in my mind, the conceptually correct average per day. Like mathematically, it's correct, but they are taking the average of the times that were graphed. Now, there will be times where that is actually going to be very, very appropriate, especially if you're, depending on how you're running your sessions, you may want the average per, sessions or something like that. So it's not that this is wrong. It's just that I just wish CentralReach would give you an option to calculate it both ways, essentially, because a lot of times, especially if you're looking at long-term data, you're going to want to take the actual average per the day rather than the average per times graphed. Another reason why this is really, really important is, let's say that, and I think I actually made this on purpose. Oh yeah, the 220 only has 4 learning opportunities, but then the 120 has 9 learning opportunities. This can actually get really, really drastic where, let's say that you run a lesson twice, and the first time you only ran 3 learning opportunities, and the second time you ran something like 50 or 60. That will actually skew your data. Let's say that you got 100% of those 3, and let's say that when you ran 50 or 60, you got something closer to 60 or 70%. That will actually make a pretty significant difference when you're looking at your graphs. So my general rule of thumb, my general recommendation is ignore the summary data. Just look at the daily data. Now, the question is, how do you do that? Because if we just select some data right here and go to Insert Graph, I'll just do it simple. We'll just do a line graph. Excel doesn't know how to read this data. And I did select multiple days here. What we need to do is we need to summarize this data. However, we need to summarize it in a machine readable way, which means we need to get a serial number. Now, the way to do that is you're just going to need to write one simple formula, and I'll go ahead and paste the text of the formula in the description of this video. It's a very simple formula, though. We're going to need to get, so I say it's a simple formula. It's actually two formulas. We're going to need to get the date value from this data. So equals date value, and then what is this, F5. F5. And there was a problem. Whoops. I didn't need the parentheses, actually. Now, that didn't work. Why did it not work? Because this is not machine readable. So what we need to do is we need to take the left of the text in F5, and then we need the 10 leftmost characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. CentralReach is really good about this. If this were to take place in January, it would be 01 dash, 01 dash whatever. And then close the parentheses. And this gives us the leftmost data. However, it's still not machine readable yet. I've gone ahead and formatted that as a date. Did not work because we need to convert it into left value. So I'm going to put my cursor in front of the left formula, and we will type date value and then a close parentheses. And this is what we want. We want this serial number right here. Excel is really good about auto formatting in terms of if you type in the text of a date, 1/2/25, it will convert it on the back end. You don't see any of this, but it will convert it into the serial number right here. And again, I'm going to go ahead and format this to short date, or we can do long date. And we need to expand this a bit. This is the data that you need in order to graph this in Excel, especially if you need to summarize it per day. Now, what you can do is you can just grab onto this little corner right here and fill it down, or you can hit Control, Shift, and then the down arrow. On a Macintosh, it's Command, Shift, and the down arrow. And then you can hit Control D or Command D, and it will automatically fill the formula down here. Now, you could graph this just like this. I'm going to go ahead and select, make sure I've got 2 days. You can go ahead and graph this just like this. However, it's going to be a little wonky. Basically, it's still graphing trial by trial. We need to get the summary per day. There's a formula that you can use. There's a couple of formulas that you can use to get the summary by day. And I am going to make a video on some advanced graphing techniques, but the easiest way to do this, I'm going to go ahead and delete the summary. And this is usually what I do. If you don't need the summary, I usually delete it. The easiest way to summarize the data is select the columns that you need, which is E and G, because that has the formula with your date. Go ahead and do Insert, Pivot Table, select a new sheet, and then we want trial in the rows. And again, there was only 2 days worth of data that I made up, and we want data in the values. Now, right now, Excel is giving you the sum of the data. We're going to go ahead and change this. I have to click on the I. We're going to change this to the average. And what Excel is doing is Excel is basically calculating the sum of all of the ones divided by the total number of trials. So that is the average. And this is the data that you need. Now, you can, straight from here, you can go ahead and do a pivot chart. I don't really like pivot charts. And again, the chart decided that the data needed to be in a bar chart. I don't really like pivot charts. There's a couple of reasons why. What I usually do is I'll select the data, copy it, which you can do edit, copy, or control C. Oh, what did I just click? And then what I'm going to do, date average. So I'm going to select these data, control C or command C, control V or command V. And this is what I want right here. I can go ahead and format this as a percent. I can go ahead and format this as a date, select my data, insert. I don't really like line charts. I like to do this as a scatter chart with a line. There's a couple of reasons why. And again, when I do my advanced graphing tutorial, I'll go into more detail. But here is your graph right here. Again, we need to format it. We need to update it. But this is how you graph your percent correct data in Excel. If you're downloading multiple CSVs, you just want to select all of the data from one, and then copy and paste it, and then add it in on the back end or on the bottom right here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and undo that delete that I did. If you download data and you need to get duration, so usually your duration or your frequency will be summary data. It won't be this trial by trial data. Duration is a little bit tricky because it will give you the duration in seconds. So let's do this and then like this right here. So what we need to do is we need to convert this into minutes. Very, very simple. Equals E2 divided by 60. And I typed 50, 60. There you go. So this was 0.75 of a minute. This was 2.06 of a minute. And this was 92 minutes. If you want hours, just divide it by 60 again. Really, really simple. If you want hours and minutes, or minutes and seconds, like 1 minute and 2 seconds, that's actually a slightly more complex formula. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll just paste the formula in the description of the video. And if you want to get the timestamp part of this, so let's say that you want the actual time of day, which can sometimes be really, really helpful. For example, usually when you're taking duration data, so let's say you're taking duration of a tantrum, you start the timer, and you stop the timer when it's done, and then you graph it so it's saved. That'll give you the timestamp. So let's say you want to know when in the day those are happening. That's a little bit more challenging, but you're going to need to do a formula right. And then it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's F. What is that? 6, 6. And that'll get you that time data right there. But that's not everything, because if I go to format this as time, it looks the same, but it's not actually correct. It needs to be a serial number. And Excel doesn't do a space in the PM, so it's a little bit more complex. Again, I'm going to just go ahead and paste the actual single formula in the description of this video, but what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to do left, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then and right, F, is it F? No, it's G. 6, and then, nope, it is F6. F6, and then 2. This will give you the time readable format right here. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to a time data right here. It looks the same. Oh, actually, there's one more thing that we need to do. We need time value. And there we go. This is what we need. Now we can format this as time. And we are perfect. We are all set. And you can actually graph this or sum this by the time of day. Again, I'm going to have there's actually a better way to write this formula. And there's actually a good way to write the formula where it will get you the time and day in machine readable format in one formula. And I will paste all of that in the description of this video. So thank you for watching. I do hope that this helped. If you have any questions or concerns, definitely feel free to send me a message. And yep, have fun graphing.